It was past midnight when a loud crash echoed through the tiny apartment. A glass shattering followed by silence. The room smelled faintly of burnt curry and detergent, and the flickering tube light cast a dull glow on the chipped walls. In the corner, a frail woman sat on the floor, her sari faded and her hands trembling as she clutched her chest. Her son stood over her, breathing hard, an empty glass still dripping water from his fingers. That was the night Rohan threw water on his mother's face, and it changed everything. Before we continue, if stories that touch your heart and awaken your soul inspire you, make sure to hit like, drop a comment about what you do in Rohan's place, and subscribe to Soul Spark for more real emotional stories that remind us what truly matters. Rohan Mehta was 21, tall, restless, and full of the kind of anger that doesn't have a clear name. Life hadn't been kind to him. His father had died when he was 8, leaving behind debts and a house that was falling apart. His mother, Sita, had spent every day since then scrubbing other people's floors, cooking their food, and washing their clothes, just to keep her son in school. For years, Rohan watched her leave before sunrise and come home after dark. Her hands were always wrinkled, her back always aching, yet she still smiled when she handed him a plate of hot food. He used to hug her and say, "One day, I'll make enough to give you everything you deserve, Mai." But somewhere along the way, that promise faded. After college, jobs didn't come easily. The pressure, the comparisons, the humiliation of seeing his friends move ahead, it built up inside him like steam in a locked pot. He began to see his mother not as someone who sacrificed for him, but as a reminder of everything he didn't have. Her constant advice, her worries, even her love, they felt like weights around his neck. One evening, after another failed interview, Rohan came home furious. The apartment was dark. The power had been cut again. His mother was sitting at the table, fanning herself, a candle flickering beside a half-eaten meal. "Rohan," she said softly, "can you bring a little water? I used the last glass to wash your shirt for tomorrow." He didn't answer. He opened the fridge, it was almost empty, and slammed it shut. "Why do you always do this?" he snapped. "There's never anything here!" "You can't even manage groceries properly." Sita looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "I'll get some money tomorrow. Just bring me some water now, please." That was when it happened. He filled a glass from the tap, turned toward her, and in a sudden flash of anger, flung it straight at her face. The water hit her cheeks, dripping down her sari. She gasped, not from the cold, but from the shock. The silence that followed was heavy, unbearable. Rohan froze. The sound of the dripping water echoed in the small room. He expected her to shout, to cry, to curse him. But she didn't. Instead, she looked at him, really looked at him, with eyes that weren't angry but heartbreakingly calm. Then she wiped her face with the edge of her sari, stood up slowly, and said just one thing. "Maybe I asked for too much, Rohan." Then she walked into her room and closed the door. That night, Rohan didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, hearing her words over and over. Maybe I asked for too much. What had she asked for really? A glass of water, or a little kindness? The thought burned him from inside. The next morning, her door was still closed. Normally, she would have woken him with a cup of tea and her soft humming, but now there was only silence. He called out, "Ma." No answer. Panic struck him. He rushed inside and found her lying on the bed, pale, her hand clutching her chest. He screamed. The hospital lights blurred as they wheeled her in. The doctors spoke in hushed tones: mild heart attack, exhaustion, dehydration. Rohan stood in the corridor, numb. His hands were shaking, and the image of her wet face haunted him like a ghost he couldn't escape. When she woke, her eyes were weak but warm. "Don't look so scared," she whispered. "I'll be fine." He broke down, holding her hand tightly. "Ma, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just..." She smiled faintly. "You're angry at life, not me. But don't let that anger make you cruel, Beta. Life breaks us all. What matters is what we do after the breaking." Her forgiveness cut deeper than any punishment could. From that day, Rohan changed. He took whatever small job he could find, delivering groceries, tutoring kids, even sweeping at a shop. Every night he'd come home tired but determined. Slowly, he started saving. He'd leave food ready for her when she came home from work, until one day he told her not to go anymore. "I'll take care of us now," he said, his voice steady. It wasn't easy. The world didn't suddenly turn kind. But Rohan carried her words with him. What matters is what we do after the breaking. He began to treat every failure as a lesson, every setback as a step forward. 3 years later, he opened his own small delivery startup. He named it City Services. The logo was a simple one, a glass of water clear and full. One morning at the opening ceremony, his mother arrived wearing a new sari, blue with silver threads, the first new one she'd owned in years. She looked at the signboard, then at her son, her eyes glistening. He smiled shyly. "I thought it was time to give back, a little more than just water." She chuckled softly, touching his cheek. "You already did, Rohan. You gave me peace." And as the sun broke through the clouds that day, Rohan realized something. The glass he had once thrown in anger had been empty of love. But now, every drop of water he poured into his mother's glass was filled with gratitude. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Soul Spark, where every story reminds us that forgiveness can heal, love can rebuild, and no mistake is ever too big to be redeemed. Sometimes, the people who ask us for the least are the ones who've given us the most. We hurt them not because they deserve it, but because we take their love for granted. Until life reminds us how fragile it truly is, always choose kindness before anger and gratitude before regret. Because one day when the noise fades, all that remains are the quiet faces that never stopped loving us.